Hi, it's Josh from BrightTALK. I'm here at Infosecurity Europe 2016. I'm pleased to be joined by Thom Langford, CISO of the Publicis Groupe. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So let's start with the San Bernardino iPhone hack. What kind of influence do you think it'll have on the technology behind encryption?
To be blunt, I don't think it is going to have a massive impact. I think the whole thing died a death anyway. They were able to still get the data the way they wanted it. Apple were not involved directly, and I think if anything, it's hardened the resolve of many of these companies. Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, all the big players, that actually encryption is not something that should have a backdoor built into it. So, I guess best case, it's kind of like a test case almost as to what could happen. Apple did not bend at all and did not break, and so I think there's a precedent there for other companies to follow suit.
Do you think the average person in the street with a mobile phone in their pocket, do you think they should be worried about their data or feel maybe entrusted that it's more secure maybe?
I think it depends. At a fundamental level, as long as the hardware itself is from the reputable manufacturers, etc., and it's gone through the relevant FCC or whatever the local testing, they shouldn't really be worried about it too much. A lot of stuff is turned on by default. The problem comes when you get cheap manufacturer rip-offs, when you get jailbroken devices, when people start messing around with it. Then you're actually stripping away every single layer of defense that's in that device. So the tinkerers are probably the ones, or the tinkerers who are not so fully aware of what they're doing, they just think it's a cool thing, are probably the ones that are going to be most at risk.
Okay, let's look towards the kind of financial realm. We've seen some big breaches recently, some big data leaks, a lot of money stolen. What do you think the banks can be doing to ensure that they're better protected?
Honestly, I think they could take a leaf out of the books of the adult entertainment industry. Yeah. They get information security. The number of banks who've been breached versus the number of adult entertainment companies that have been breached, it's significant. It's huge.
Sure.
It's huge. These adult entertainment companies, they're not losing customers' data. They're not losing customers' credit cards. Ashley Madison doesn't count in this, of course. Yeah. But that's because they get it. They've actually got a very strong security culture. I know somebody who does pen tests for these companies, and he said that if they are able to find or get any findings, somebody gets fired. Yeah. It's a very cutthroat. It may not be the nicest of cultures, but it's certainly effective. Sure. And why banks who protect our financial data in all of our capacities are not doing the same thing, it just beggars belief.
Is there anything apart from the fines that the adult entertainment industry is doing besides that to kind of better protect itself that the banks aren't perhaps doing?
Yeah, well, they've always been at the forefront of technology. The move to VHS, the move to DVD, the move to Blu-ray. They've always been right at the forefront of technology and embraced it. Whereas banks are still using systems based on 60s and COBOL and Fortran. They're not willing to put that significant investment into their fundamental technology.
And what about if we look at the IoT, which is a key area? There's a lot of people talking around here about hacking cars. There's a live hack going on down there on a car.
Yeah.
How vulnerable do you think our networks are really going to be when these hundreds of devices inevitably will be connected to the network?
I think potentially they're going to be very vulnerable. I was at a talk yesterday that was delivered, and it was about hacking the BBC microbits, the new on-chip computer that has been developed by ARM and the BBC. And fundamentally, it's quite straightforward to hack it and get the encryption key off it. Now, if this is something that we're trying to use to teach the next generation of coders, the next generation of developers and security professionals, on a platform that is fundamentally flawed, then we've got no chance. And in fact, we've been talking about IoT devices, Bluetooth insulin pumps that can be hacked and using default credentials to give out a fatal level of insulin, heart pacemakers that can deliver a fatal electric shock. and we're still not seeing that the level of attention being put to it that needs to happen.
And just to end on a positive slant, Tom, what do you think's, for you personally, you find optimistic about InfoSec in the next few years?
The thing that I'm hoping to be most optimistic about is the move to a more security culture-based approach rather than a security strategy-based approach. So the culture is a far more effective way of managing security and the security fundamentals. Strategies will change all the time, they change every few years. By embedding a strong culture into your organisation, it's resilient, it's flexible, it's self-governing, it's disciplined, and actually it doesn't need much feeding and watering. It's very, very self-sufficient.
What would you suggest are the key aspects of building a hearty security culture at an enterprise company?
I mean, there's plenty. I mean, just do a Google and you'll find a whole list of them. But fundamentally, I think you say stop treating your users like idiots.
Yeah.
Be open with them. Start talking and communicating with them. Reward and celebrate stuff when it happens. Actually, name people in a positive way. We name and shame, and we should be doing quite the opposite. So I think we need to change the way we approach our users. We need to stop being the department of no all the time and actually being the department of risk and risk approach, rather than thinking that we're all special flowers and that when we say no, everything stops. Because it doesn't, it just happens without us.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting talk. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're here at Infosecurity all week, so keep it on BrightTALK.com for more cybersecurity insights.